Good morning. Today we'll be discussing on potassium metabolism and its disorder. So let's start. So when you say potassium, first point to note, potassium is a major intracellular cation. It is not an extracellular cation. Cations are positive ions. So it's intracellular, it's majorly within the cell. In fact, its concentration within the cell is up to 150 millimole per liter. Now you can see it in a red blood cell also. That's erythrocyte. In erythrocyte, it is up to 105 millimole per liter, but in some tissues, on a 150 millimole per liter. Of this potassium we just mentioned, the body actually have majority in the ICF, that's intracellular fluid. Only about 2% is found in the extracellular fluid. Why is there a lot of potassium in the intracellular fluid? It is because there's what we refer to as sodium potassium ATPase. Sodium potassium ATPase helps in actually taking three amount of sodium into outside the cell and two amount of potassium into the cell. This was my first question in part 1. First question: sodium potassium ATPase help in transporting 3 molecules of sodium out of the cell into the extracellular fluid, because sodium is majorly in the extracellular fluid, and help to transport 2 molecules of potassium into the intracellular fluid. So between the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid, which of them is more positive? Answer: extracellular fluid, because 3 amount of sodium and 3 molecules of sodium is transported into it, and just 2 positivity, that's 2 potassium, is transported into intracellular fluid. Therefore, the ECF is always positively charged when compared to the ICF. You get? Alright. The total amount of potassium in the human body is 3000 millimole, and 98% of it is intracellular. Just 2% of the potassium is extracellular. Alright, so let's move on to the next slide. It is very important to know the functions that potassium plays. Now, this difference between the amount of potassium inside the cell and the amount of potassium outside the cell is very important. This gradient, this difference is important in maintaining the resting membrane potential and also in the neuromuscular junction. For normal neuromuscular function, this is very important. The function that intracellular potassium plays include cell growth. These ones can come in MCQ question. The function that intracellular potassium plays: cell growth, maintenance of cell volume, DNA and protein synthesis, also in the synthesis of some enzyme, some enzymatic function, and also for acid-base function, acid-base balance. So these are some of the functions intracellular potassium actually plays. Okay, the body actually requires some amount of potassium to function properly. Potassium intake is about 60 to 120 millimole. Once we take in this potassium, it is generally when you take in potassium, when you take in food, for example, that contains potassium, the nutrients are absorbed into blood. Do you get now? And blood is majorly made up of plasma, and plasma is majorly what now? Made up of ECF. So it's part of the ECF. Plasma is part of ECF. So with that help of that sodium potassium ATPase we've already seen, the potassium that we take in that enter into our ECF will be redistributed from this ECF into the CF. There are some hormones that can also help in redistribution of this potassium that's in the ECF that you take from food into your ICF. And these hormones you must know because an MCQ questions include insulin, catecholamine. No, catecholamines are epinephrine, and dopamine. Then beta 2 agonist. You can remember beta 2 agonist. Alright, either selective or non-selective. So these are examples of some drugs and hormones that actually help for the distribution of potassium. So they will ask you, Which of the following does not help for the distribution of potassium? Insulin helps. It takes potassium in the ECF into the ICF. Catecholamines help. Beta-2 agonists, those salbutamol, terbutaline, they also help in doing that. The potassium plasma level, like if you should check somebody's plasma, somebody's blood, the potassium level is about 3.0 to 5.0. 3.0 to 5.0. Next important point, very important, it's an MCQ question. Plasma potassium is a good indicator for total body potassium. If the amount of plasma potassium is high, it means the amount of potassium in the body is what? Is high. Do you get now? If the normal value clinically, not from this material now, clinically, the amount of potassium you see in the body is like 3.5 to 5.5. That's the range. 3.5 to 5.5. That's the range. But here we are using in plasma 3 to 5. Now, in hyperkalemia, when you check the plasma level of potassium, when it is higher than 5.5, you have things like 6, 6.5. That's hyperkalemia. So we are saying there's excess potassium in the body. Why? Because there's excess potassium in the plasma, in the blood. That's what we are saying. You knowing the amount of potassium in the blood is a good index, it's a good indices, it's a good indicator for you to know that there's excess potassium in the body. So if there's reduction in the plasma amount of potassium, it means there's reduction in the amount of potassium in the body. So plasma potassium is a good indicator for the total body potassium. All right. Potassium is not produced by our body. Actually, we get potassium through diets. Hmm? They actually absorbed in the small intestine. They are excreted in urine and feces. But however, it is majorly through urine. Normally, that's how it is being excreted. Abnormal way we can lose potassium include vomiting, diarrhea, burns. These are not normal. They are abnormal things, right? But normally we lose potassium through urine and feces, mainly through urine. Foods that contain potassium include banana, the fruits, avocado, pineapple. These fruits contain potassium. Hmm? Dried dates, tomato. All of these are examples of things that contains potassium. Potato, chicken, liver, they contain potassium. So please know those first things mentioned. Potassium is highly contained in banana, avocado, pear, pineapple. They contain high amount of potassium. Okay. Most ingested potassium are absorbed and less than 10 millimole is lost in feces. Most potassium excreted from the body through the kidney, that's through urine. Now we are moving to an exam aspect of potassium, renal handling of potassium. This was a theory question for us in our exam game part. Renal handling of potassium, so you have to pay close attention to it. All right, so when you say renal handling of potassium, simply put, we are talking about what does potassium, how does the kidney regulate potassium? You get now? Renal handling. How does the kidney regulate potassium? Remember, I was going to mention the point that potassium is majorly excreted normally by the help of the kidney through urine. How does the kidney absorb potassium? How does the kidney excrete? That's just what is renal handling. What does the kidney do to potassium? That's renal handling of potassium. So we'll discuss on renal handling of potassium now. The glomerulus. Okay, before we talk about this, let me just show you the part of the kidney. So the part of the nephron, so you can just you can remember and it will just follow and blend. Look at this diagram. The first part there of the diagram, which is this point here, is called the glomerulus. This other part here is called the proximal convoluted tubule. This part here is where we refer to as the thick descending limb of the. Then this part here is also referred to as the thick, thin descending limb. This is the hairpin bend. And this is the thin ascending limb. This is the thick ascending limb. This is the distal convoluted tubule, and this is the collecting dot. The collecting dot has two parts. You can see this stuff separating it. So this upper part here is called the the cortical aspect, because that part is in the cortical aspect of the collecting dot. Then this one here is called the medullary aspect or medulla aspect of the collecting dot. You get ah. So that being said, we can now continue. Let me remove these things I've placed there. Mhm. Okay. So now, once somebody, when there's blood flowing to the kidney, when the blood flows to the kidney, potassium is among the constituents of the blood component there that you see flowing to the kidney. The potassium that you see flowing to the kidney, first of all, they come to this glomerulus. That's where blood moves to. First of all, blood goes to the glomerulus. Potassium is absorbed. It's among the filtrates, things that are filtrated. It's filtrated from this glomerulus into this proximal convoluted tubule. You get now? So in the proximal convoluted tubule, it's among what you see here, among the glomerular filtrates. In the proximal convoluted tubule, potassium is reabsorbed. You can check this stuff here. About 65% of potassium is reabsorbed. When you say reabsorbed, it's leaving the renal tubule. You get to enter into the circulation back. Anything that is within the renal tubule wants to be excreted, but anything that is leaving reabsorbed means it's going back into the system. You get now? So in the proximal convoluted tubule, a lot of structures are reabsorbed: glucose, amino acid, sodium chloride, water. A lot of water are absorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. Potassium. So they say discuss on the renal handling of potassium. Talk about what happened to potassium in the glomerulus. What happened to potassium in the proximal convoluted tubule? In the glomerulus, potassium is among the components of what form the glomerular filtrates. Yes, it passes through the glomerulus, form the glomerular filtrate, and enter into the proximal convoluted tubule. The proximal convoluted tubule, 65% of potassium is reabsorbed back into the system. You get now? So after it is being reabsorbed, it now moves downward to go to this region here, which we call the thick descending. You get now? The thick descending. At the thick descending, nothing happens. Then, as we are going down the thin descending, H2O is being reabsorbed. Some amount of water is also being lost. It's also being reabsorbed. When this amount of water is being reabsorbed, the potassium that is in this renal tubule actually increased concentration. Yes. Let's say, for example, there's a lot of water mixed with the potassium and other things. Now, water is leaving, so the concentration of those other components will increase. So, there's increase in concentration of potassium as it's passing through this region. So, potassium is not reabsorbed in the thick descending, it's not reabsorbed in the thin descending. Do you get now? It's only reabsorbed from what you've seen already in the proximal convoluted tubule. They also move to the thin ascending, and then move to the thick ascending. At the thick ascending, something happened. At the thick ascending, there is a channel which we refer to as the sodium potassium 2 chloride channel. Sodium potassium 2 chloride channel. That channel is actually, that transporter is what actually help for more reabsorption of potassium. So potassium is also reabsorbed not just in the proximal convoluted tubule, but also in the thick ascending loop of health. It's also what now? It's also reabsorbed. Okay, so you've seen that second region where it is reabsorbed. So next point, it moves from this thick ascending to this distal convoluted tubule. At the distal convoluted tubule, there's a channel which we refer to as a sodium chloride channel. It is sensitive to thiazide. Take note, this in this thick ascending that we mentioned, said we have a channel called sodium potassium 2 chloride channel. It is sensitive to furosemide, which we refer to as loop diuretics. So loop diuretics actually act here at this thick. So it's a question. Loop diuretics actually act where? They act at the thick ascending limb. And thiazide diuretics actually act where? They act at this distal convoluted tubule. That's where thiazide why does thiazide diuretics act at this then distal convoluted tubule? Because there's a channel called sodium chloride channel where thiazide that is sensitive to the thiazide. So thiazide acts there. So are these descending this distal convoluted tubule here, potassium, small amount of potassium is being secreted. Secreted means it is, you can see potassium is being secreted here. It is entering into the tubule. Secretion is something that is entering into to be excreted, whereas reabsorption means it is leaving the tubule so that it will not be excreted. So from what we've seen so far, when we continue from here, or let's go and look at the writings. What we've seen so far, we've seen that potassium is being reabsorbed at the following sites: proximal convoluted tubule is also being reabsorbed at the thick ascending limb of the loop of health, thick ascending. Then it's being secreted now, that is being made to undergo excretion, that's secretion at the distal convoluted tubule. At the thick ascending limb, that's where we have the sodium potassium 2 chloride channel that is sensitive to furosemide, loop diuretics. Then at the distal convoluted tubule, that's where we have the thiazide diuretic sensitive sodium chloride channel. So sodium chloride channel at the distal convoluted tubule is sensitive to thiazide, and in that region is secretion that is occurring. All right, so let's actually look at the writing before we go to collecting dots. So here, glomerular potassium concentration is equal to plasma. The amount of the concentration of potassium in blood is the same as that in the glomerulus. Glomerulus is the part that normal blood just flow to. However, 65 to 75% of the filtered potassium are actually reabsorbed, just the same way sodium chloride and amino acid are reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. That's what happens. So 65 to 75% of the potassium are reabsorbed there. Water is reabsorbed at the thin descending limb, as we've seen already. At the thin descending limb here, water is being reabsorbed. Okay, then this increase the concentration of potassium. Potassium reabsorption takes place again at the thick ascending limb of the loop of health. As you can see, at the thick ascending limb of the loop of health, potassium reabsorption takes place again. Okay, then this is through the help of sodium potassium 2 chloride transporter, which is inhibited by loop diuretics such as furosemide. Already seen that. At the distal convoluted tubule, there's a thiazide sensitive sodium chloride channel that helps for the reabsorption of sodium and chloride with secretion of little amount of potassium. You get to that's where we stopped. Okay, so let's go back to our diagram, and then this is the write-up. Let's just be using the write-up to explain. Now in the distal convoluted tubule, which is this portion here, let me remove this. Let me remove the other things. So this is the distal convoluted tubule here. Circle it. At the distal convoluted tubule, we said we have two parts. The upper part here is what we refer to as the cortical part. Then the lower part is called the medullary part. At the upper part, there's a cell here which we call the principal cell. The principal cell are these cortical parts. This principal cell contains sodium potassium channel. You get this principal cell, you can see the principal cell here. It contains sodium potassium channel. This principal cell causes sodium to be reabsorbed and potassium to be secreted to enter into. You get, you can see potassium entering into here. You can see sodium going out by the help of aldosterone. That's what happened in the principal cells. So remember, the principal cells contain sodium potassium channel, and this sodium potassium channel allows sodium to be reabsorbed and potassium to be excreted, to be secreted into the tubule. You get, that's in the principal cell. Then that's by the help of aldosterone. That's one thing you should remember. Then at the medullary aspect, that's the lower aspect, you are going to see another channel here, which we call the hydrogen potassium channel. Hydrogen potassium channel. Hmm? Let's look at the writings. Let's look at the writings. Next, the collecting duct is the area where nearly all the potassium are being secreted into urine. There is a sodium potassium ion channel in the principal cells of the cortical collecting duct. This helps to reabsorb sodium and secretes or excretes potassium into urine under the influence of aldosterone. There is a potassium hydrogen channel that is located in the intercalated cells of the medullary collecting duct. You've seen this already. It causes exchange of potassium depending on the prevalent acid-base situation. This means that it can cause potassium to be reabsorbed and hydrogen to be secreted, or it can cause hydrogen to be reabsorbed and potassium to be secreted depending on the acid-base situation. All over the collecting duct, there is a sodium hydrogen exchanger. This sodium hydrogen exchanger exchanges sodium for potassium or for hydrogen. It can exchange sodium for potassium or hydrogen. It can allow sodium to be absorbed and potassium to be excreted. You get, or allow potassium to be absorbed and or allow sodium to be absorbed and hydrogen to be excreted. So let's use that diagram to explain it once more. So in this, let me remove these things. Okay, so for this lower region here, for the medullary aspect, remember I've already seen the sodium. Okay, we've seen this already. All right, so that is that for that. So let's give a recap of what we've said using this diagram, so you just get the picture. Please, if you are asked to write this in exam, if it's theory, you must draw this diagram. This diagram is 50% of whatever you'll be writing, and your writing will be 50%. It's a must, you should do that. Okay, so let's recap this using this diagram. First thing first, the absorption takes place here, will be fast this time. Take note at the proximal convoluted tubule. Thank you. Another region where the absorption takes place is here at the thick ascending limb. Secretion takes place here. Thin and the distal convoluted tubule. Excretion or secretion also takes place in this region, which is the collecting duct. Collecting duct has two parts. In the cortical part, sodium hydrogen and sodium potassium channel is there, which allows sodium to be reabsorbed and potassium to be excreted. In the medullary part, there's what we refer to as the hydrogen potassium channel. The hydrogen potassium channel can allow hydrogen to be reabsorbed, potassium to be excreted, or it can allow hydrogen to be excreted, potassium to be reabsorbed, depending on the acid-base balance. Then there's a channel that is located in all parts of this collecting duct. That channel is what we refer to as the sodium hydrogen channel or sodium potassium channel. It allows sodium to be reabsorbed and potassium to be lost, sodium to be reabsorbed or hydrogen to be lost, any of them. So this is the renal handling of potassium, which you must know. So after that, can I move quickly to the factors that can affect excretion of potassium? One, potassium intake. If you are taking a lot of potassium, it will increase the secretion or the loss of potassium in urine. So increase in potassium intake will cause you to lose potassium. Neurocorticoids. Neurocorticoids include aldosterone. Aldosterone favors the loss of potassium in urine. So aldosterone, neurocorticoids, all right. Neurocorticoids actually increase sodium hydrogen exchanger and increase potassium secretion, and it causes sodium to be reabsorbed. Then sodium, when there's excess sodium, if you have sodium, potassium will be reabsorbed you get is the opposite. So when there's increase in sodium, there'll be reduced excretion of potassium. You get all right. So that's that as to the factors. Hmm? All right. Drugs that can affect renal handling of potassium. We've seen some drugs already that can affect. But primarily, let's talk about the diuretics. For example, you see that we mentioned some diuretics like furosemide, loop diuretics that can affect the sodium potassium 2 chloride transporter. Is that not true? Thiazide diuretics that affect the sodium chloride transporter is what we are saying. Uh-huh. So that's what you said. That here, this transporter, sodium potassium 2 chloride transporter, can be affected by furosemide. Loop diuretics can affect there. Then the other diuretics can affect here. That's not true. Aha. Then there are other diuretics that can also affect. Diuretics like the spironolactone, aldosterone, sparing diuretic. Aha. So the diuretics can actually affect potassium losing diuretics like loop diuretics, the other diuretics. There are things that can they can affect potassium sparing diuretics like spironolactone. Mm. They can also affect AROBS, that's angiotensin receptor blockers. They can also affect renal handling of potassium. So amyloids, mm, amyloids inhibit sodium potassium exchanger. They can also affect. So just know diuretics can affect, a lot of diuretics can affect renal handling of potassium. We've seen some examples. Some of them are potassium sparing, some of them are potassium losing. Potassium losing diuretics include diuretics like loop diuretics, furosemide, thiazide diuretics like hydrochlorothiazide. Then potassium sparing diuretics like spironolactone, amyloid, they are potassium sparing diuretics. Alright, so these are drugs that can affect renal handling of potassium. So in our next class, we'll talk about disorders of potassium, which is hypo and hyper. Thank you so much.